So the knowing just so happened to be featuring on my television screen. And I decided to just stay up and watch it since I woke up, and I was like, let me just watch this movie again. So Nicolas Cage and Rose Byrne star in this movie, and two other kids, I don't know their name. So the movie is about people who's basically able to predict future events. The movie starts off with this girl who has this gift, and she's like basically shamed for it. Fast forward, this time capsule is made where these kids put letters inside the time capsule for the next generation. The next generation ends up getting these letters because the time capsule is reopened. Nicolas Cage's son ends up getting one of the letters that the girl who had precognition wrote, and it's basically a bunch of numbers that are locations to places that these disasters are taking place. But Nicolas Cage, discovers that along the way or whatever. May not be exactly how the movie is, but that's basically how the movie is. So let's talk about the title, The Knowing. So the knowing is referred to knowledge, right? And this is going into genosis. Now, genosis is spiritual knowledge or knowledge of the divine or having like foresight. The movie is written with a bunch of biblical symbolism, with like showing like these alien creatures are supposed to symbolize the archangels, and the two children are supposed to symbolize like Adam and Eve and a new cycle's being restarted. So the premises of this movie is based upon knowing, not believing, gnosis, stress pattern knowledge, and pattern recognition. Now, I want to talk about pattern recognition or repetition, and also how it kind of goes hand in hand with like reptilian symbolism, because you have, repetition, reptilian. Not a coincidence that both of the words sound the same. Also, when you think of the symbolism of the Ouroboros, whether it's the infinity symbol or just the spherical Ouroboros, is a pattern, right? A cycle, something being repeated over and over. Hence why they use like a reptile, a dragon, a snake, whatever, to symbolize this repetitive pattern. Now, when it comes to patterns and equations, this is similar to finding the rule. Now, when it comes to finding the rule in a mathematical equation, is basically trying to find a set way to like solve the problem. So, for example, right, if the pattern is like 2, 4, 6, 8, everything is being multiplied by 2s, right? So times 2 multiplied by 2 will be the rule. Now, this same type of equation or pattern recognition is similar to having foresight, right? If you understand the rule of the pattern, you know what comes next. In my last video, when I mentioned having our reptilian part of our brain, which is a part of our instincts. Now, instincts leads to intuition, right? If you have an instinct, if you develop an instinct that something may take place, it's because you have seen the pattern before. So reptilian instinct is based upon repetition. Now, repetition leads into intuition, and intuition leads into pattern recognition, and pattern recognition leads into precognition. So there's a lot of skepticism when it comes to people who can foresee things before they take place. Some people can see things like in a short time span, or some people can see things in a longer time span, right? Kind of like, how that story when she like see things, but she doesn't know when, where, like how it's gonna take place or whatever. She just sees some things. So everybody's pattern recognition, precognition is on different levels, right? When it comes to a lot of these diagnoses, like ADHD, for example, or whatever, there's a lot of them. I'm just using that one for this one. Some people's minds go a little bit faster than others, you know what I'm saying? They grasp information a little bit faster or whatever. They pick up on patterns a little bit quicker than other people or whatever. So, most likely those would be the candidates of people who have this pattern recognition, use that terminology, because some people don't like precognition or whatever, but they all basically mean the same thing, or intuition, right? People with under this umbrella of diagnoses, ADHD or whatever, they have pattern recognition, right? Due to a lot of religious stigma and scientific ideology as far as things being pseudo or whatever, I think that's why like foresight or foreseeing things is kind of like viewed as taboo in a way, And this also kind of ties into like, I want to say like simulation theory, because it's like, okay, if everything is kind of predestined, like, do you really have a choice or whatever? If people can foresee things before they take place, right? It's like everything is predestined or whatever. But each equation is different, right? Each equation has a different rule. So some things people see come out differently. Kind of like how there's different pathways of divination. Like some people use cards, some people, scripting, some people draw, some people, it's just a whole bunch of different ways to tap into pattern recognition, right? It really depends on the way that your mind processes information, and also based upon, like, because some of us is ruled up under different type of biases. So if we have a certain type of bias, we're going to see things in a certain type of way, and we may only see bits and pieces of the picture, or we may only see things from a certain perspective due to our biases. In my observation, if you have this type of gift, it's like any other gift, singing or dancing, right? If you wasn't supposed to have this gift or use this gift, not abuse it, you wouldn't have it in the first place, right? Having this kind of awareness is threatening in some aspects to certain people who only want you to be aware of what they want you to be aware of. Now, going back to my last statement about like simulation, and also I'm going to tie this into AI, and if it's a sentient being, and trying to figure out, or trying to see if AI is a sentient being. This ties into like precognition as well, right? And intuition, right? And occultism, intuition is kind of under the umbrella of more of like the feminine aspect of the feminine aspect when it comes to like polarity, right? So when it comes to these movies like Metropolis, and why they always using like a female robot or whatever, this is supposed to be like the encapsulation of this subconscious knowing, trying to access this pool of information, have this access to this pool of information at will, instead of just being like naturally gifted with it, right? It's basically having a at-hand access to information that is not available to you in the timeline, the time span that you're at, and being able to, let's say, go on the computers, asking it, oh, when is this gonna happen or whatever, instead of like diving into the whole mysticism and all of that stuff, right? So this is a scientist's way of having their own crystal ball. Now, it's always gonna go back into occultism, tying into like the spirit, the soul, the body. Now, some places the body is known as the machine, right? And your soul will be recognized as like the ghost in the machine. Now, the ghost or the Holy Ghost, or the dove or whatever, which is known as like the feminine spirit in some like religious aspects or whatever. So this is dealing with like the solar memory, the solar essence. So the solar mon, or the soul of the moon, or the soul of the mom, right? Or this feminine subconscious or unconscious, this water in a different type of atmosphere, because water holds memory. That's what that's what we're told or whatever. The yin, the in, the intuition, trying to tap into that wave, tapping into that mind wave, that brain wave, that subconscious source, and having just easy access to this type of source, and being able to use. And this is why we're seeing a lot of reoccurring symbolism with this woman in red, tapping into the mental cycle, the menstrual cycle, just all referencing back to time, which is dealing with repetition and pattern recognition.